At 10:38 a.m. on the morning of October 1st, 2015, we were dispatched to an active shooter at Umpqua Community College in Roseburg. We initially dispatched an engine and an ambulance, and due to the nature of the call, myself and 3 other chief officers responded from our headquarters.
As we went en route, I really didn't think much of it. Thought it was a domestic, one victim kind of response. We went code 3 lights and sirens over there, and as we were driving to the scene, more information became available stating that this is a mass casualty incident.
I then stepped back and initiated incident command system because I knew we were going to need more resources and notify the hospital to deal with this much larger scale incident. My EMS battalion chief, who was with me on scene, quickly began triaging those victims that were in the classroom and was shortly thereafter joined by 2 engine companies to assist her with that process.
People were yelling at us, and the first thing I remember was the deputy that was yelling, "There are 20 dead people in there." And the first thing that I thought when I walked through the door is that this is just like a scenario from training. And we train as an agency, we train with other agencies to try to prepare for something like this. But I don't think you can wrap your mind around something like that. And fortunately, I think for many of us, our training took over and it was almost in another place. It was working through that as if it were a training scenario.
Emotions were going everywhere because there was a lot of people. And as we got there, the people that were there was such a variety. There was law enforcement everywhere, yelling, screaming. There was victims that were walking towards me that were either had blood, were shell-shocked, and they kept yelling me to keep going. So I essentially went deeper into the scene until I got into this room that was the shooting room, where there were victims that were deceased on top of live victims. Fortunately for me, I was able to find our battalion chief, our EMS battalion chief, who was in there ahead of me, and we made eye contact and we were able to understand what was going on and started the triage process.
In the end, we had 19 total patients in which we transported 10 of them, and 9 fatalities were at the scene. Later, one of those patients ended up being a fatality, so we had 9 total victims with 10 fatalities in the end.
It was surreal and scary, to be honest. It was a small room. There was not a lot of places to go. For me, I wanted to be able to look away at some safe place to see some kind of normalcy. There wasn't any. Everywhere I turned, there was death and destruction, if you will. And so it got to a point where my training kicked in. We do drill on mass casualty incidences every year, 18 months or so. I think a lot of that fell back on that. I just went into paramedic mode, and the battalion chief and I and the other engine companies that were there initially, we just started working together and started triaging and moving people as quickly and efficiently as we could.
And we worked very well together that day, and I think that it made a lot of difference in the outcome on that day.
We responded to this incident with over 45 fire and EMS personnel on 10 ambulances, 4 engine companies, and 5 chief officers. Once we got there, our immediate task was to be able to rapidly triage these patients and be able to treat them and transport them in as quickest manner as possible.
People said that you guys did a great job, and I think a lot of it is just our training and trying to be as professional as possible. Falling back on working together with other agencies made a huge difference. Everybody came together and to get the job done and to work with other people. The scene was chaotic because the law enforcement weren't sure if there were other shooters, if there was explosives. There was a lot going on, and we just did the best we could with what we had. And I hope I never have to see it again.
We've gone through our careers thinking that it always happens to someone else. And on that morning, we learned that it doesn't always happen someplace else. It happens in our communities, as small as this community is. And I think that we lost security that day. The kids at the high school lost security that day, and they began discussions about how do we know we're safe if the college isn't safe. The instructors at UCC were saying the same thing. And so I think we lost that sense of security, and I don't know that we'll ever get it back.
That incident on October 1st changed us forever. But it won't define us. This community came together more than I've ever seen in my entire career or life, for that matter, to support everyone within this community. And that continues today, because this isn't just something that goes away that next day and you go about your life. This will be with us, each of us, for the rest of our lives. And how we deal and process through that is very important, and will set the course on how we deal with the rest of our careers going forward. So we need to make sure that we take care of our own and take care of those first responders. And we've, since that day, have put many things in place to assist with that. As I can say, as the chief and the leader of this organization, I am extremely proud of each and every one of the men and women that work for Douglas County Fire District 2 and their professionalism and their response that day, because I know unequivocally that lives were saved that day because of their actions.